The business of making milk chocolate products is as fascinating as ever.
Chocolate is a happy flavor.
Hershey's. The Hershey Company.
2022 was a record year in terms of our performance.
From a $150 candy shop investment to becoming the largest chocolate manufacturing company in the world, the story of Hershey's is quite an interesting one. However, before diving into the history of the company, we must first talk about the man who had this ingenious idea to mass-produce chocolate, Milton Hershey, and everything begins on September 13, 1857, the day he was born. Milton Hershey was born in 1857 to two destitute farmers who lived from hand to mouth. Their situation was made more deplorable as his father could never hold down a job. Henry Hershey was attracted to numerous businesses, and he started more than a dozen ventures, including drilling for oil. However, these businesses never materialized, leaving the Hersheys scrambling for income. April of 1862 saw a new addition to the family as his mother, Fanny, gave birth to a girl named Serena, Milton's only other sibling. Henry's uncles, seeing the predicament of their sister, paid to move the family to Lancaster. But the situation at home grew worse. Their family was struggling to get by, and by 1867, his baby sister died after a period of illness. This proved to be a turning point in young Milton's life, as the tragedy proved to be the last straw for his parents. They never divorced due to his mother's religious background, but their marriage was over. Henry Hershey's numerous endeavors meant his family kept moving from town to town, disrupting his son's education. Milton Hershey attended 7 different schools and would only go as far as the 4th grade. He became a school dropout at age 12, and in 1871, at age 14, Milton found himself joining the workforce. Milton's first attempts in the business world was a job as an apprentice at one of the local printers in the town, a job that his father had gotten for him. He worked for a newspaper publisher by the name of Sam Ernst, but after a few months there, he slowly learned that he wasn't cut out for the printing business. He disliked both the job and his boss, who was notoriously short-tempered, and he was fired from the job after he dropped his hat into the printing press, causing a terrible equipment breakdown. He would soon get another apprenticeship. This time, his Aunt Mattie got him a job working at Royer's Ice Cream Parlor and Garden, where he was apprenticed under Joseph Royer, confectioner. The confectionery industry proved to be an instant fit for him. Unlike his first job, Milton was initially assigned to look after customers' horses while they were in the shop, but in time, and with persuasion from his mother to Mr. Royer, he made it into the kitchens, where he then became involved in the shop's candy making. This job went better, and in 1876, after studying under Royer for 4 years, Milton decided he had enough skills to enter the candy business on his own, and he moved to Philadelphia to start up his first confectionery shop. He had already saved up funds for that purpose from his apprenticeship days, but the money wasn't enough, so he approached his aunt and uncles, who showed him support and agreed to lend him some money so he could start his business. There was a significant reason why Milton chose to go to Philadelphia. That year, the city was hosting the World Fair. The Philadelphia Centennial International Exhibition was the first of its time to be held on American soil. The fair included the participation of 37 different countries, and its expected attendance was in the millions. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and Milton was prepared to take it. He opened his shop on Spring Garden Street on June 1st, and began competing with other candy businesses. His creativity would set him apart, as he went as far as installing an air chute to convey the aroma of his candies from his kitchen to the outside. The candy shop began making steady streams of sales. In November of 1876, the World Fair was over, and it took with it the majority of Milton's customers. Sales began to diminish, and having no other options, Milton began selling his products at wholesale prices to other candy shops in the city. This strategy would prove to be unsuccessful, as he struggled to balance the books. The business kept losing money. Though he took measures to reduce the cost of running the venture, things would still turn out to be difficult. Even so, Milton would continue to work tirelessly for 5 years, fixated on turning a profit and also continuing to borrow from family members to keep the business afloat. He overworked himself to the point where he felt sick and couldn't go on. With all that was going on, his uncles decided they would no longer be funding his businesses and advised him to sell what he could and move on. His first business only lasted 6 years, during which he worked himself until he was burned out, all to no avail, and he ended up losing the trust of his family. It was time to wrap it up and move on to the next chapter of his life. After shutting down his business in Philadelphia, Milton had no option but to join up with his father in Leadville, Colorado, who had relocated there following word of a silver rush in the area. Milton, on arriving there, quickly discovered there was no chance of hitting it big in the mines, as the silver was mostly gone. He decided to abandon the silver dream and his father, and instead went to Denver, where he found work at a caramel shop in town. The candy maker had a unique approach at making his caramels. Rather than using paraffin, which was the norm at the time, he used vanilla, sugar, and fresh milk, which combined to give a product that was smoother, softer, and sweeter than regular caramel, while having a longer shelf life. Milton was taken in by what he saw, and he quickly devoted himself to learning the process of making such excellent caramel. With his newfound knowledge, Milton left Colorado with his father for Chicago, where they both started a candy business in the heart of the Chicago shopping district, selling to retailers in the city. The business was short-lived and fell apart, but this didn't deter him. Milton knew what he had to do, and he decided to go back to Lancaster to solicit help from his relatives. This attempt would fail, as they all turned him down, refusing to give him any more money. Disappointed but undeterred, he decided to go to New York City and landed a job at Hoyler's Candies, a successful candy shop there. Here, Milton would bide his time, honing his candy-making skills further while getting a sense of the city. Soon enough, Milton established his own shop, which was doing well, leading him to hire more hands to run the business efficiently. His mother and aunt, as well as his old associate William Lebkicker from his first job, also joined in. The shop would later dwindle in sales as Milton, on advice from his father, decided to begin selling cough drops along with his candies. But this action would be his undoing, as he began accumulating debts due to the high cost of production. The business eventually crumbled and failed after 3 years. And once again, Milton was left with nothing. Now back in Lancaster, Milton already knew what he had to do. Having already made a breakthrough in New York, he approached his family again for a loan. But he was turned down again, as he had already inherited his father's reputation as the black sheep of the family at this point. Nevertheless, Milton began making and selling candy with a few supplies he had left from New York, applying the skills that he had learned in Denver. Seeing how successful his business was, his Aunt Mattie decided to use her row house as collateral for a $700 loan due in 90 days, which he used to buy equipment. Around that time, Milton's unique tasting caramel caught the eye of a British importer, who placed a large order after being impressed with its taste and long shelf life. Milton had to take out another loan for $1,000 to meet up with production. As he did not have the collateral for the loan, it was signed personally by an officer at the bank who was willing to take a bet on Milton and his product. Just before his loan was due, he received a check for 500 British pounds, which was used to service his loans, and that was the beginning of success for the Hershey brand. Sales of his caramels took off immensely, and with a product so superior over the other competitors, his business skyrocketed. And by 1894, the company was making $1 million in sales. But he would soon make a discovery that would make him bigger than he already was. Milton made a trip to Columbia to attend the exposition, and there he discovered J.M. Lehman's chocolate rolling machinery. Chocolates were seen as a luxury treat at the time and were very expensive, as mass production wasn't easily available at the time. But Lehman's machinery made it possible for chocolates to be mass-produced at a cheaper price. Milton, seeing the potential, decided to make the riskiest decision that he would ever make. He decided to switch from making caramels to chocolates instead. He bought the entire Lehman setup and, upon returning to the US, began experimenting with various chocolate products. He created the Hershey Chocolate Company as a part of his caramel business, and within time, he noticed that chocolates were slowly eating into the caramel business. And then it was time that he decided to sell his caramel company to focus on chocolate production. In 1900, Milton sold his caramel company to the American Caramel Company for $1 million. The caramel business was a thing in the past, and Milton began building his chocolate empire. Slowly but steadily, the company grew, eventually surpassing the previous caramel sales. With iconic products like the famous Hershey Kisses and Hershey's Milk Chocolate with Almonds introduced in 1907 and 1908 respectively, the brand grew astronomically, reaching sales of over $3.6 million in 1911. But tragedy would almost strike the following year. Hershey's brand grew into a pioneer and a powerhouse in the chocolate industry. Sales crossed $5 million in 1912, and both Milton and the company were at their peak. But tragedy almost struck which may have changed the trajectory of the company today. That same year, Milton and his wife had booked their tickets for the maiden voyage of the RMS Titanic. But they canceled their reservations at the last minute, as Milton had an urgent business matter to attend to. That last-minute decision would save them from the disaster, and they ended up returning to the US on another ship. Milton made a lot of investments, which contributed largely to the growth of his company. He established his town of Hershey in Pennsylvania, complete with homes for his employees, a park, and even an industrial school for orphans. He also created his sugar company in Cuba, a move that kept the company's production afloat during sugar scarcity in later times. He retired as the company's CEO in 1944 at the age of 87 and died a year later from pneumonia. But his legacy would carry on over the years. The company has undergone a lot of changes in modern times, acquiring other companies while adding a new array of chocolates to its products. But to this day, it remains among the biggest manufacturers of chocolate, with a worth of over $44 billion. What are your thoughts on the Hershey brand? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe.